So, uh, greetings, everyone. I was trying to wait a little while and see if I could get some response from the people of Minneapolis. But it does seem that uh, I've kind of fallen on deaf ears. Um, I wanted to do this program tonight because, uh, as many of you know, uh, at an earlier time, I had been invited by members of the Minneapolis Black community during the aftermath of the George Floyd incident, murder. And we were talking about the elections in Minneapolis and how many of the people thought it was time for a change. But when it came to their elected officials, most of them were reelected. So, um, I'm going to take a few minutes here and see if I can get in contact with some other people here in Minneapolis. I invited Mr. Don Allen, but Mr. Allen is at a GOP block party. I also invited Mr. Anthony Scott. As you know, Mr. Scott is a part of our sports program, and I thought that he would definitely want to have some input. Um, so I'm just um, anyway, I sent a few more emails out to see if I could get some response. And as I was saying, I had been a part of a lot of the shows during the George Floyd uh, incident. I really wanted to get Mr. Tucker on here. Mr. Tucker's a little older than I am, seemingly a little more cynical, and I was wanting to get his opinion also. Anyway, let me give my opinion. It seems like this is going to be a very short program, but let me give my opinion on what happened here. Because, like many, I was kind of taken by surprise. I thought for sure that uh, Joe would be stubborn and try to take up the race against the Orange Man. And I was quite surprised when he stepped down and Kamala was all of a sudden our candidate for the presidency. Now, as a lot of you know, I have been very critical of Kamala, uh, Noah Kamala, uh, and her policies when she was the uh, district attorney in the county of Los Angeles. And for people that know my background, when she was busy actually putting away people of color for long marijuana sentences, yes, I was very skeptical of Kamala. Um, but, excuse me, a little dark, a little glare there. But to my surprise, she has actually transformed kind of right before my eyes into this major political power. Um, like I said, I was very skeptical of uh, her being vice president because I was always afraid that maybe something would happen to Joe and Camilla would be our president. I think this way I am much more encouraged by her nomination because now we know and we get to see exactly what she stands for, whether it's in debates, whether it's in the barnstorming that she does going through cities. But we get to know her much better than we did as a vice presidential candidate. And I will also have to admit that being a veteran, and as most of you know, most of my comments against the right are punctuated by hashtag veterans against Trump, hashtag veterans against the GOP. So, therefore, I was virtually satisfied with anyone in the Democratic Party that was going to run. Now, once again, there were a couple things that came out of left field and a couple of things that I even though they were all right with me, they might not have been all right with the voting constituents because I would have loved to see Jasmine Crockett possibly as her running mate, possibly Governor Newsom as a running mate. But a lot of these people would have been much too controversial, and I do understand her kind of getting a middle of the road candidate in Governor Tim Walz. Now, I didn't know a lot about Tim Walz's record or Tim Walz until he was announced as Kamala's choice. I've learned a lot in the last few days and weeks. And when you put him up against the opposition, meaning J.D. Vance, his record, his stance on the major issues are far and away much more in tune with our democratic way of thinking as a democracy, not totalitarianism, but as a democracy, in contrast to what 45 and J.D. Vance are trying to put out there. So when I looked at the man's military record, when I looked at what he was doing in his own state, um, you have to admire uh, the way that he has fought to keep some of the major issues uh, out in front and being solved within the state. You have kids, that uh, have a school lunch program that our kids are not leaving school or coming to school hungry anymore because we had those programs. Uh, Elderly, veterans. I mean, the man has taken a powerful stance on everything. So I wholeheartedly agree with Camilla's choice for Mr. Tim Walz. And maybe sometime in the future, we can get some of the citizens of Minneapolis here on the show, and they can tell us exactly how they think, what they think of him as the running mate for Kamala. Uh, and I'm I would especially like to get uh, Mr. Allen's contrast on the policies of the current Republican Party uh, as opposed to those of the um, excuse me, as opposed to those of uh, the Democrats. Let's see if I have anyone in the private chat here. Okay. No chats or no comments. Um, I, maybe it was my timing, and I will certainly try to see if I can reschedule um, because I think it's very important for us that are in other states to know exactly how the people of his own state feel about Governor Tim Walz. Uh, and perhaps instead of reaching out to the black community, which I felt was important, maybe I should have reached out to the majority community. So I will seek out uh, those from Minneapolis and see what they think about Camilla's choice. And I will try to do a rerun of this show, um, certainly before the election, and hopefully before the Democratic convention. Um, in closing, I will say this. Um, Please do not think that it is not important for you to get out and vote. Do not go by, the old adage, my vote doesn't count. Every vote counts. I know we have an electoral college system here where it doesn't seem like it, knowing that 45 was actually elected, even though he lost majority vote. But people, especially people of color, elderly, veterans, make it your priority to get out to the polls. If you don't want to heed my words, scroll through Project 2025. And of course, they're going to tell you, oh, this was written by the Heritage Foundation, and, you know, this was just kind of a wish list. We know that this is bullshit. When you put these things down in a document where people can read and be influenced by them, it is not a mistake. It is not an error. This is a message that you intended to get across, and the American people should read this and expose the Republican Party for the fascist wannabes that they are. They don't want an election. They want a dictatorship. Why else would a man say, if you vote for me in 2024, you won't have to worry about 2028? And you mean to tell me that that doesn't scare you? My last point. I've talked to a lot of veterans, and a lot of them are saying, "Well, we want someone that's keeping us out of war on foreign soil." Would you rather have that war come to you on domestic soil? The policies that you are trying to enforce and invoke upon people in an unjust way could come back to actually bite you in the ass. You have a presidential candidate calling for violence if he is not elected. Are we already being prompted by another big steal? The purpose of the Republican Party is to promote distrust within our most sacred privilege, that of the right to vote. People, there was a thing back when I was a young man called boycott. Simply put, do not spend your dollars where you are not welcome. Let me get that through to you again. Do not spend your dollars where you are not welcome, or with a party who's bound and determined to keep you as second-class citizens. Now, I am a boxing and a martial arts fan, but I will never contribute not one of my dollars to UFC. Not when I see Dana White standing beside the orange sickle here and telling me how good this man is for the country. So what you do with your dollars and who you vote for is your business, but I will not spend my money where I am not appreciated. So I'm not calling for a boycott or anything like that. I'm just telling you my personal opinion. I'd like to thank those of you that did join us. And as I said, I will be reaching out to some of the other communities in Minneapolis and find out what they think of the nomination of Governor Walz. So, I see Mr. Anthony Scott is here. Mr. Scott, how are you doing this evening?
Doing good, James. I see they got some new clubs open up here. I think I'm getting back. I think I'm gonna get back in the game.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
Yeah.
I see you got the glasses on, the baseball cap. Look like you're getting ready to do a little stepping out tonight.
Well, I might. I'm thinking about getting back in the game. I mean, these players is weak these days. They just want to shoot you. They don't have the game. They can't talk the game. So I think I just may join it for a while. Get back in it.
Hey, I stayed in the game until I was 71. So that's all I can tell you. If I had been in my 20s, they would have locked me up because I like women that was 20 years older younger than me. I like them young tenderonis, as we used to call them back in the day.
Sure did.
So, but hey, they say it's never too late, Mr. Scott. The new 60 is the new 60 is the new 40 now.
Well, when you get back in the game, you're riding the caddy. You might as well just jump back in and see what's happening. Just dip my toe in the water.
Yeah, but you never can tell. Yeah, I understand. But I'm glad to see that you joined me tonight because I, I know nothing about your governor. I had got a little bit involved in your politics when I was on the morning program with you and Don, and we talked a little bit about the politics itself of Minneapolis. But let's talk about the governor. First of all, what did you think when Biden stepped down?
Well, he needed to. I mean that performance at that debate was just, yeah. I mean, you almost felt sorry for the man. His past his use by date, and they should have intervened before then for put him on display like that, because that's really what sealed the deal right there. Once everybody saw that, they were like, "Hey, man, game over." As they say, game over. You know, So that's kind of how that was. But the thing is, the whole politics things, James. We need a third party. Because we keep being left with people that everybody just kind of scratch your head. Do we really want these people to lead us? Really, it's not like we have anybody, but still, you got your Trump people. They jump behind him like Pied Piper for whatever reason. So it's really it's this tough. That's why I'm just gonna get back in the game. Just say hell with it.
Well, now, what would you expect from a third party? I mean, we've tried that We've had the Libertarian Party. We've had a couple other breakoffs, but no one has seemed to really be able to catch on. Uh, so, what would you expect from a third party, and how would you how would you embrace as a voter? How would you embrace a third party? What would they have to bring to
Well,
the table?
it seems to be coming down to who has the bag. I mean, that's why these third party people can never get. They don't have the backing. They don't have the money behind them. They don't. They might have great messages. We've seen people pop up over the years. Different parties have great message, but they don't. It's just that this two thing is so entrenched. This Republican Democrat thing is so entrenched. I mean, heck, I went to vote. Because I wanted to vote. The primary, and there's a guy going against Ilhan. He went against her before. This guy Don Samuel, and he up by 2,000 votes in the primary, but then he couldn't get on the actual ballot so that the people could tell who they wanted because he lost by 2,000 votes in the primary. He can't be in the running. And so that's if they were that close. Well, let the people decide. And that's why this thing is really it's just falling apart. Now, neither one of them, and again, neither one of them deserve it. I mean, Ilhan Omar, she got so many shady deals, married the white man that she gave all her money to, but then she said she didn't know him. 2 weeks later, she marries him, and people buy this stuff. I mean, so a third party, yeah, we need other choices and how that would happen. They have this thing. So, and then you start to almost believe Trump when he says it's rigged. Everything is rigged. The whole thing is rigged. So, witch hunt. It's rigged. And so when you see that they can't be anybody else get in but these two, and when I went to vote, I was actually going to vote for Royce White for Senate. I was going to vote for it, but I couldn't because they said if you vote for you have to either be Democrat or Republican. You can't. I'm like, you couldn't vote for who you wanted. But all
Well, that's the primary, but
that's primary.
now I know here in California on my ballot there is a blank space for a write-in candidate.
Yeah.
Now, do you think that there's ever a possibility, like you was talking about your man, he only lost by 2,000 votes? What if he ran a write-in campaign? Do you think that such a thing as that could be effective? What about some of these grassroots tools that we have to go back to? I spoke of just a moment ago the thing that we used so effectively back in the day called the boycott. I don't spend my dollars where I'm not wanted. Your thoughts?
Well, we're not together enough. We're not together enough. I mean, how in the world can somebody like Ilhan Omar continue to win elections up here and go and represent this area in Congress? Chief from a refugee camp. Well, what do you learn in a refugee camp? They don't have no politics there. They don't have but they have so many Somalis up here, and they continue to jerry rig the voting areas. They keep changing the neighborhoods and the vote. Now you're in this district. No, no, you can't vote in it. You're in this district. So the overall manipulation is what prevents. I mean, the two people we have, Kamala and Trump. I mean, come on. We don't have nobody better than that.
Well, you had Kennedy, that didn't work. Uh,
well, he somebody ate his brain or some kind of thing. But that's it's developed into this kind of a thing where you have nutcases and people that get elected. I mean, this Taylor Green, this Boebert, these maniacs, these people that are just get up and spew anything out of their mouth. They have no decorum. I mean, the whole thing has really become very, to me, very childish in a lot of ways. It's become very childish. And, Trump is doing a witch hunt. Oh, they're so mean to me. It's so, it just doesn't have any, I mean, it's funny. A guy had talked to me about running for mayor here against Fry years ago. And I said, well, I've never been in politics. I mean, I probably would have to be on the city council or something first before I'd even think about this. But this young guy, now he's the guy that helped the mayor of St. Paul get in. He's his right hand man. And so, now I'm 74. So, well, 73, I'll be 74. And so at this stage, I don't know. I'm debating because I'd like to get a couple of these Somalis out of there because that's all they do is get the bag for them. And they have ripped off the city. Well, I mean, I don't know who's all listening to this, but
Well, it's out there now, Mrs. you can't, like they say, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. But I mean, we have seen this in different parts of the country. When I was back in Ohio, I saw when we had the influx of people from the Middle East, and all of a sudden every neighborhood store was owned by quote unquote an Arab. His family came, the son. I mean, and it was they established themselves, and then they established themselves as a voting bloc, as a voting community, and they were able to get their candidates in key positions. Something that we seem to have lost. And when I say we, I'm talking about us as Black people and brown people trying to get our candidates into office. As as you pointed out, the Somali bloc can almost dictate their own city councilmen, their own ward and district precinct committeemen. They can, as you say, I mean, that they can vote as a bloc and send someone to Congress. There was a time when we were able to do that. I remember, and everybody knows I'm not a big church goer, but I remember when the ladies of the church, the deacons, the trustees would all like hey, so and so is up for mayor, so and so is up for city council. Let's all make sure that we get behind and vote for this person. Uh, that just doesn't happen in our community anymore, Mr. Scott.
yeah. Well, we've lost that. I mean, the churches do not have nowhere near the power and the pull and the sway that they had because when people came, from the south, came north, one of the first things they did was find a church because then they knew they could find some like-minded people. Maybe somebody could give me a job. A lot of times they had relatives there. A lot of times they had people from their communities. I've been reading this book, The Warmth of Other Suns, where they talk about the Great Migration and how people from certain areas in the South, you get people from Arkansas. A lot of them went to Oakland. You go out there, and so they can get themselves established. You have here in Minneapolis the people from Talladega and Birmingham. These are all my people, and they, my uncle owned a gas station. My uncle was a lawyer. My cousin was a doctor. We all came in together and we worked like that. But that's all over with now. That's the churches are not, they don't have the sway and the thing that they did because in the South, that's how they came up with, that's what they had. And as they came north, it's so everybody's on for themselves now, but we're not. For some reason, we are more, to me, more divided than we've ever been as a Black community. And then they're throwing all this LBGG and all this other kind of stuff in the mix of stuff that should be for us, all this affirmative action now they started to right the wrongs that they did generationally, from slavery on to black people. But oh, now it has to be LBTG. Oh, if you don't talk about that, and men and women and all this sort of kind of mess that and like I say, that's always been there. Like I say, James, I said on the show. I mean, we just call them he she's. They were just a he she. We knew they was there. They was there. We didn't. They had a
They
woman
were the choir director of church, Mr. Scott. Come on.
switching and swaying. We've seen all of that. But it's become a dominant thing, and all these things to me is just to hold black people back. I mean, I think that's the whole game of it. But James, you had a president, Obama. You was all I saw you waving the flag and just with your fist up high.
Hey, to me, I mean, even though I did celebrate Obama's second term more than the first, but to me, it has gotten to a time because if you remember, and think of this, very seriously, Mr. Scott. It came down to a decision, a choice that was made by the people of Illinois between Mike Ditka and Barack Obama. But Mike Ditka had just won a Super Bowl. So, that was more important than him becoming president of the United States, thank God. But as you said, I mean, this, to me, it has, I have to kind of echo your sentiments. We have become less involved as a nation than we were back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Yeah.
And, back then, your grandmother and grandfather gave you goals that you aspired to. But when your grandma is 35 and going out to the club every night and trying to get her swerve on, it's kind of hard for her to teach you moral values, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much what we're faced with. I mean, I grew up, up here. My mother came up here from Birmingham right after high school, Parker High School. And it's funny because I talked to people about Parker, and they said at one time Parker had more black people at that school. It was the biggest black school in the country. And the other day I was going through a bunch of stuff and I pulled out her diploma from Parker High School, 1949. And I mean, that diploma made my master's degree look like a postage stamp. It was signed, hand signed, and the principal was Colin Powell's father-in-law. Okay, that was the principal part. He signed the diploma that you have a hand signed by him, and his wife, wife, Colin Powell's wife, taught at Parker. Okay, and then the grandfather before that had been the principal at Parker. And there's so much history and so much, and it was a black school. And my mom came out of there. They said she started playing piano in church when she was 3 or 4 years old, and that's all she ever did. And she was noted as a great gospel player up here until she died. She died at 49. But at that church, see, my dad didn't go to the church. he started going, I remember, and then he was coming in too late. He couldn't, he didn't really do that. But those church ladies and those choir ladies were with me my whole life. When I got married, they were all there. We moved into our house. They come over here and brought me pies and cakes and food. And then when Dad died, the whole church was there. The lady that used to read the minutes and stuff of the church, she read the obituary at Dad's funeral. Dad didn't even, but he was part of the family, and we were just family. It didn't matter. Some of them were nefarious. They knew that,
Of
but
course.
still, they were still family, and
Yeah.
that's kind of where I think it's just kind of really broken down, where the nefarious has kind of taken over the game as far as the family being in charge, and so and everybody else is taking advantage of that. The
Yeah.
rest of society is taking. They know that we're weak now. They know we're not together. They know we can maybe find a puppet and put him up there, and they'll go for it because, oh well, we got somebody now, blah blah blah. And but that's just my assessment. Nobody has to go by what I say.
Well, I mean, it's kind of evident, Mr. Scott, when you have a president, and then you have the president pro tem of the Senate say that he will make it his business to make sure that the president does not put a justice on the Supreme Court. That tells you everything that you need to know about today's times. But I want to talk a little bit about your governor, Mr. Scott, because as I said, I know very little about him, and I'm sure that people that are not within your state feel the same as I do. So, can you kind of tell us, I mean, we've heard about the school program, the school lunch program, where, he's making sure that the kids get fed. He seems to be in favor of women's rights. But can you tell us a little bit about the man? What's your assessment of him?
Well, I mean, I will give you my assessment, but I have to really just preface this with, over the years, Uncle James, you've always kind of, you know, thought I was behind Jacob Fry, and you pointed at me. You're mayor. You're mayor. Burn the town. You're mayor. And so I don't, from what I know about Walls, he grew up in Nebraska. He's a Nebraskan. And he came here, and it's funny, he went to the school I graduated from, Minnesota State Mankato. And he graduated from Mankato, and he stayed in Mankato, and he taught school, and he coached football in Mankato. And so then he went, into the National Guard, and he eventually, I'm not sure how, I can't remember some of the scenario, how he got up here. Um, and he was in Congress here in
Right.
Minnesota. He was a Minnesota congressman for a few years. I don't know if it was more than one or two terms. And then he decided to run for governor. And there's all this controversy now about his military. Apparently, he was 24 years in the National Guard and aspired and got up to a certain level where if you get, and you know more about this than I do because I've never been in the service. I mean, and then he left. He was at a certain level, but he really had to stay at that level for a few years to leave at that level. And then he, decided to run for Congress. And, people are saying that he cut and ran from the military because they was getting ready to get real about this thing. And so, is that true? Now it's just slinging arrows. It's just slinging. You can't believe half of what you say. But my bottom line is this city is ruined, and it was under his watch and Jacob Fry's watch. So that's something that I personally can't forget. The ruination of this area, that they allowed this thing to burn down. They allowed this police force to continue to have all these people on there with a union, Bob Kroll, who kept all these guys under wraps, made sure nothing happened to them for all these years. And, nobody did anything about it until it exploded. And here we sit. So personally, I mean, I'm not impressed at all with I'm not impressed with Kamala. But what's your alternative? We've come to a thing of lesser of evils.
I thought we got to that point when we were doing the Bush thing. I thought we had went through that.
Yeah.
But so, do you think that Tim Walz is to Kamala the same as uh, Biden was to Obama, to get that single white male vote that you might miss by running an all black candidate?
Well, it's still a black woman, and I mean, Trump has really upped his rhetoric. I mean, he's really showing who he is. I mean, involved. He's not even doing anything about policies or what he wants to do for the country. It's just name calling people. So can Walls really help the party? It's so hard to believe what you read and what you see. I necessarily don't see him as a strong candidate. I mean, I I really don't. I thought the guy from Pennsylvania would have been a lot better choice. But again, you just I don't know these people, and so I do know a little bit more about Walls. And I know about Klobuchar because when I was a supervisor of child protection, she was the county attorney. So I've been to meetings with her. I've talked to her. Same with the current one, this Mary Moriarty. We worked in the same building for years. So I mean, I do have some. I wouldn't say. I mean, I've never socialized or anything like that with him, but in a business way, I've seen him, and I'm just not that impressed.
Well, then,
It's
okay.
worth. I mean, for what it's worth.
So then, what do you think are the weaknesses of this Democratic ticket, Camilla Walls? I mean, Harris Walls. I'm sorry.
Well, again, when you see what happened to the city of Minneapolis and this whole reluctance to call out the National Guard to put a stop to this, um, it became everyone for themselves. They marched across. There's a street. It's Nicollet Avenue. Kind of excuse me, Lake Street. It's one street. It goes all the way to St. Paul. You go across the Mississippi River. There's a big bridge, and you're in St. Paul. And these people went all through Minneapolis and tore it up. And they went across that bridge. They was on their way to St. Paul, and St. Paul was ready for them. St. Paul had every police, everything they could scare up to not let them people into St. Paul. And they did not go into St. Paul. And so in Minneapolis, so they just turned around and just kept tearing everything up and burning everything down. They were taking safes out of the bank. They're running down the street with the safe out of the bank. I mean, it's the most ridiculous, and it's way worse than they even tell people about. It is way, way, way. It's the worst. I think it's the worst thing that's ever happened in this country. It's way worse. And so you got to realize, well, this is the governor that didn't try to quell this. They let the police station burn down. They ran. And that was terrible because it almost had to be burned down because all kind of weapons was in there. They had all kinds of stuff in that police station that if these people had got a hold of all that stuff, I mean,
You got to remember the riots in Detroit, Mr. Scott,
I sure do. Yeah.
where they took the machine guns away from the National Guard.
Yeah.
Is it? It's. I mean, uh,
Yeah.
I don't even know what whether I want to comment on that or not. But I do. Since you brought it up, I do want to address the George Floyd Square. Um, I haven't seen a lot about it since Candace Owens thing when she came through there, and I'm not a big fan of Candace Owens, but it did seem like it was a problem that needed to be addressed, and yet it wasn't. And as you said, many times, it seems like this is an area that is off limits to the police. It's been 3 or 4 years, hasn't it, since the George Floyd riots? I mean,
Yeah.
well, what's going on here, Mr. Scott? I mean, in numerous cities, we've had numerous protests. We've had numerous demonstrations, but eventually things got back to normal. Things, the status quo was reestablished. The neighborhoods were reestablished. In a lot of these neighborhoods now, we have uh, 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 different, maybe not statues, but at least some type of recognition by the neighborhood that these things did happen. We don't want them to happen again, but Minneapolis seems to have taken us to a much more extreme level. Uh, Mr. Scott, what is happening with that situation? And uh, just looking at it, is there ever going to be a solution, or is this going to be the status quo?
It's probably going to be the status quo until we get these politicians out that are in there now because they won't do anything. And they've allowed a group of, I call them vigilante type people, to actually run the area and make like they're keeping it safe. And they're paid, and they've been paid a lot of money. And there's a lot of money that has gone through there that these people have collected, supposedly keeping safe. When you look at it, it's just nothing but trash. The businesses there are just hurting, and that Cup Foods on the corner, that was the whole problem in the first place over the years. With the gang and drug activity and all of that, they're still there. They changed the name. They made like they sold it or something, but it's nothing has changed. They still have 4 blocks that they have their own little makeshift roundabouts there. They're not even regular roundabout. They people made those, and they just keep people out. The police still don't go there. I mean, the neighborhood people talk about, oh yeah, well, you want to get your bag, you want to get your stuff. We just go up here to George Floyd and we can get whatever we want, you know. And so that all that stuff is going on there, totally unabated in the evening. There was a gas station there that got all burned up and burnt down. Well, these people are living in there. They found bodies in this gas station. People shot dead in this gas station. They quell all of this stuff. And so I had a meeting with the mayor. It must have been a couple of months ago now. Me and my sister, we met with Jacob Fry. And he was so impressed with our books and the things on the black community and the history. And, I told him I was a distinguished alumni of Minnesota State Mankato. My sister's a doctorate of, Columbia and Harvard, a tenured professor. You know, I thought he was going to listen to us. And he said, well, yeah, we've got a guy that's in charge. He'll be getting in touch with you, with George. I never heard from anybody. I called on there a couple of times. It just still sits there. The buses don't go through there. The people can't get their public transportation. Everything is routed around for these people, and it's all trash, abandoned cars, some kind of clothing thing that sits out in the rain, and people are supposed to come by and buy the stuff, or what? Are they give it away? I don't know what they're doing. It's just total, and nobody takes charge. And when they gave George Floyd's family $20 million right away, they gave his family $20 million, and they said 500,000 was coming to the community to help build back George Floyd Square. Well, did that 20 million, did that 500,000 come from the money that George Floyd's family had to give, or did they take that off the top and the city dealt with that? No answers. I asked the mayor that question point blank, and he hemmed and hawed. He wouldn't answer.
Well, I guess I should
And
ask.
another thing I told him is just, when the Michael Floyd thing happened in St. Louis, I happened to be in St. Louis a little after that because my business that I do, my unemployment business, that's one of their headquarters. So when I retired, I said, let me go and network with the people. I have lunch with them, talk with them. So I was at the protests for Michael Floyd. I went back to St. Louis maybe about a month ago now, a month and a half. I told the lady, take me right by the Michael Floyd thing that we were at that was all burned down and everything. She's from St. Louis, born and raised. She said, you know what? I'm not sure where this place is because it looks just like a normal place. People were sitting out having lunch. People were standing on the corner waiting for the bus. Cars were going up and down. It just looked like, okay. And then so I pulled the newspaper, and they had a thing where they had the police chief, the mayor who was black, city council chief who was black, the police chief was white, and they were all walking kind of almost hand in hand by the Michael Floyd thing, to show people we're changing this thing. And I showed that to Fry. I said, isn't this an example of what can happen? He just, him and Hod, he just, well, yeah, I'm going to put you in charge, but, nothing, nothing.
But once again, I have to ask you, Mr. Scott, if you keep electing the same officials, how can you expect to have a different outcome?
Yeah, you're absolutely right with that. You're absolutely right. Ilhan just, she's going to be shoehorned in. Royce White, I mean, he seems like he's out in outer space. Yeah, but he's the Republican candidate for Amy Klobuchar's seat. I don't believe he has a chance in hell.
Yeah, I was hoping that we could get Don on tonight, but Don texted me back that he was at the GOP rally in downtown Minneapolis.
Yeah, there's some kind of thing. Yeah, I saw him send something. Something
Yeah.
is going on down there.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like getting dressed up to go down to there. If I get dressed up, I'm gonna go to, Johnny Mays. I mean, I'm not even going to hoity-toity.
Yeah. But Mr. Scott, the clubs ain't like they used to be when we went to the club. I
Well,
mean,
you're
you know,
right
we,
about that.
we went to the club and we was hunting, we was scouting, we was looking.
Yeah.
Now the guy wants to know what color socks you got on. Why you got on that blue headband.
Yeah.
I mean, the club was a place for players to go. Now they're a place for gunmen.
Yeah. I know it's a different game. I probably have to scout it out in the daytime. Just to check it out. But well, that's where we're at. And like I've already said all my disdain and hatred for the rap game. And how I think that is poisoned. And the poison, and I know you don't want to really get into that. You seem like you may have some affinity for the rap game, which is fine. I guess, but I have total disdain for it.
I think music, just like everything else, has, I guess you want to say evolved. But I mean, I'm certainly not going to spend my dollars once again to have a bunch of hyped up kids all jumping up and down, all trying to talk at the same time, and I can't understand the lyrics. The lyrics don't go with the beat. I mean, uh, hey, completely different time.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that drives the youth, and I think that we have to embrace that if we want to send our messages to the youth, because when the leading by example that grandma used to do, uncle so and so, cousin Ed, those things don't exist anymore. We don't have those type of Uncle Ed is doing 20, daddy's doing 10, and mama got two boyfriends and a girlfriend. So the family values have definitely eroded, and I think it shows not only in our communities, but in our attitude toward self-esteem and having pride in our neighborhoods. Now, I know this is getting a little off the subject, but I think that in order for us to be effective politically, we have to establish our own bases and spheres of influence. We cannot keep blindly following the Democratic Party. We can't keep blindly following the Republican Party, and we don't really have an alternative. So I'm with you on the third party. I just don't see how it would possibly succeed, as you say, when everybody else is getting the bag. Kamala got what, $50 million overnight?
Yeah.
So just by Biden dropping out of the race, was it 50 or 500 million, whatever it was. But I mean, these are staggering numbers,
Yeah.
and my we are on our way out. 74, 75. It should not be a time when we are influencing the future, because we are judging the future from what we've seen in our past.
Yeah.
And I think that, I know it's very scary to think of, but if we don't prepare our young people to be able to run the world, run our economy, Mr. Scott, what is in for our grandchildren when we're dead?
Yeah. Yeah, that is the big question, because I think, James, when we came up, families were at least had some focus on trying to keep us to go to school every day, they made that effort to do that. Now, some of us,
Mr. Scott, Mr. Scott, if I did something wrong on the way home from school, I could possibly end up with two whoopings on the way home and another one when I got there.
yeah, before you got there. Yeah, I know. But on the other hand, I used to go to my cousin's house all the time. He lived a few blocks away, and their best friends were across the alley, and we had a little band. Their father was a doctor. And so we'd be over there rehearsing, and I said, "Oh, I got to go home and eat." And the mother said, "Look, take that garbage out, and then come on back in here and get you a plate." I said, "Well, yeah, I'm good with that." So I would have dinner there before I got home, because that's how the neighbors were. That's how the people were. They treated all. They knew all the kids in the neighborhood. They knew my parents. I knew them. And so that whole communal thing, that's out the window. All that is just totally out the window. And I think a lot of it is economy. I think a lot of it is, when I look at when I used to go back and forth to Mankato to school, which is 90 miles, 75 or 80 miles away, I could get $3 worth of gas. It go round trip. I could go there and back.
I could put $5 in the tank and ride all week.
Yeah, that was put $5 in. You had. But see, all of those things have really choked out. People are dependent on things like Section 8. They're dependent on these kind of things generationally to pay their rent, to make their living, there's nothing that where they can get to a point where they can make enough to let that stuff go and be on their own. They're kind of tied to all of this.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Mr. Scott. I know, and coming from the projects in Cleveland, in Youngstown, I know that there are people that can fill out a Section 8 application and can't fill out a job application.
Yeah.
Hey, you laugh, but you know what I'm saying is true.
I certainly do. Because my wife used to run the Section 8 thing in the little city, Richfield. And she used to tell me man, did you know who came in today? Oh, I said, yeah, I ain't seen him in years, blah, blah, blah. And she said all these people were coming in, Section 8 when it got open, and she tried to, oh, yeah, this is Billy. Yeah, come on, man, around here. I'll have you fill this out, So it's, and the type of job things. I mean, my grandparents, they couldn't even go to school. The ones that lived up here, my maternal grandparents, my grandfather, he worked for the railroad. And I used to ask him about it. I said, well, what did you do? He said, I carried ties. I said, ties? And then I looked up ties, and a tie is a tree that's cut into a square thing that they could lay the railroad tracks, and that's what they did.
The big blocks of wood that go in that the rails sit on.
Yeah, that's what he did. He carried those things. Him and another guy would carry them things. And so when he retired from the railroad, he was up here, and he got a job in the union working for the University of Minnesota, and he rose to the head janitor at the University of Minnesota at the library. 4th grade education, but had a work ethic. In his little house, he did all the concrete. He roofed the house. He put windows in the house. The garage, when they got it, he had the garage moved there, and it was a dirt floor for years, and he concreted the floor himself. He did all this stuff himself. 4th grade education.
Yeah. See, there's an app for that now, Mr. Scott. There's an app for all of that. I want somebody to lay concrete. There's an app for that. I want somebody to clean my house. There's an app for that.
Yeah.
I want to learn, how to fix something on my car or in my house. YouTube, there's an app for that.
But they didn't have none of that.
That's right. They didn't have all of that. Nowadays, we have so much time on our hands. And we have so many different things that are made to make our life easier, which a lot of that stems from our generation, trying to make sure that, our kids didn't have to go through the same thing that we did. And I think, once again, and I'm guilty just like everyone else as a grandparent or great grandparent, making sure that they had everything that they wanted, not that they needed.
Yeah.
Which is what we were given. Yeah. We had what we needed. Yeah. Every once in a while, you might have got something that you wanted, but your parents made sure that you had those basic needs fulfilled, and you didn't get a $200 pair of jeans and a $300 pair of sneakers to go to school with.
No.
You
can get that.
I mean, as a high school athlete, uh, the big thing for us was Chuck Taylors. If you had a pair of Chuck Taylors, you was one of the big men on campus.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it's like the powers that be. See, they capitalize on that kind of stuff, and as soon as they see the Jordans and they see that this kind of stuff, then they kind of flip the script on all of this stuff. And it's like they bombard you with all this stuff. You see it on TV, and you got to have it to the point where kids are killing each other to get that. They got to have it.
Mr. Scott, my 11-year-old niece has $300 worth of hair on her head that came off a horse or some other type. I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, uh, I remember, my grandmother and my great aunt, they were all cosmetologists. They were hairdressers. Back in the day when you had the hot comb and all that stuff there. Even before that, I mean, you had a few perms, but grandma got you remember she got the blue to put in her hair, so her hair wasn't gray no more, and
Yeah.
I mean, things like that. Nowadays, like I said, in order for to get ready for your kid to go back to school, you got to have a $200 pair of jeans. You got to have a $300 pair of Jordans. A Versace or somebody's name or across your chest, and like I say, $300 worth of horsehair in your head. Rather than Johnny, what's 1 and 1? Is that 2? Johnny thinks 1 and 1 make 3. Because now he has to use his computer, so he don't know that it ain't about the 2 fingers no more. You got 2 fingers and the one that you type it.
Yeah.
And I know I'm sounding rather callous here, but Mr. Scott, these are things that the Black community has to get back to, and if we want to be effective economically as well as within the voting field, we have to be prepared. We have to stop being observers. We have to become interactive. We have to care about our community. Right now, it's only care about me.
Yeah. Well, we've been, I don't know if we've just been put in this position. I still say the economy piece is just it's huge. We when I me and Jackie were together living in a nice place that her dad rented to us. My mom and dad, they had broke up, and my mom was living in this house with a nice house that we got out by the creek. I mean, beautiful house. And so she was paying this old lady $90 a month for the house. And so that's what she thought she was supposed to do. She took the money to the old lady. The old lady would come by. She'd go by, pay her the 90 every month. Well, one day I get a call from the old lady's son. He's out in Boston somewhere. He said this house was on a contract for deed. This deed was up 5 years ago. You owe us $12,000, and if you don't have it in 30 days, you guys are out of here. I said, well, we've been paying the money every month to your mom. Well, there was the balloon. You didn't make the balloon. And so we were getting ready to, I had just started working. And so I took my grandfather, he had just retired from the university. And they said, he's too old. We can't give him a mortgage. He's too old. And so I remember my grandmother, she used to do what they call day work. You know what that is?
Yes, man. Yes, I do.
And she was very good. I mean, I think she made more money than my grandfather did working at the university. And he had 3 jobs. He had another job after university. I rarely saw him. But she was really killing it with these rich people all out in the suburbs, and so she worked for this one lawyer guy who she was real friendly with, and the kids were friendly with us. This white dude. And so I said, "Damn, I don't know no lawyers. Let me see if I can find this guy." And I looked in the phone book, and he had an office on the top of the biggest bank building in downtown Minneapolis. So I go up there, and I look out the window, and I can see all the way over to St. Paul. I'd never seen any kind of view like this. I was just stunned. And I told the lady, I says, "Is Mr. Morgan here?" She said, "You know Mr. Morgan?" I said, "Yeah, my grandmother worked for him. I'm in an emergency." This young guy comes out and he says, "You knew Mr. Morgan? Mr. Morgan?" Well, he owns the firm, but he lives in Florida now. He said, "Look, I'm going to call him. And if we can do anything for you, I'll let you know." Before I got home, this guy called me. He said, "Come on back down here. We got something for you." He gave us the $12,000 through some bank. The guy was the banker ended up being a crooked guy. He used to be the guy for the Twins. It was called Midwest Federal, and all them guys ended up in jail. But I went down there and I got the money, and he said, "I'm going to make you and your mom joint tenants of the house because you're working, she's not. So we'll give you the mortgage at 12,000, and then it was $100 a month, something. It was just ridiculous. The house is worth almost 500,000 now, according to them. Yeah, my brother lives in the house now, and so that kind of stuff. When I say the economy, I just bring it back to that. Where we couldn't pay the $100 a month, $90, and then we get a mortgage for 12,000. And then it became even more fortuitous because we could keep the house with homestead. Like I was an owner, so I could homestead the house, even though I lived with my wife in an apartment. But then my mom died young, and then the house just became mine. We didn't have to do anything. It was just my house. Just fortuitous stuff. And then, we was renting, and my brother wanted to buy it. I said, "Yeah, let's cash this out. Boom, let's be done." But the economy, to me, is what killed. And then all the houses we have now were bought a contract for deed, which they say is terrible. You shouldn't do that. People are ripping you off.
Yeah.
But my son, when he buys his house about 15 years ago, he takes me to the closing. I said, "Oh boy, I guess I better bring my checking account." He wants me to go. He puts down all the money. He does it all. And the house had just been flipped. So a guy had bought the house and fixed it up, and then actually had over $60,000 more. And so this was like 6 months ago, but yet and still he had to pay all of these fees, all this license fee, and
all of that,
do the mortgage thing. And I said, "Well, they just did this 6 months ago. What the hell does he have to pay all this for?" Had to pay all of that stuff, all this. As opposed to when my grandfather bought his house, he just gave the man $500, paid the thing, came with the balloon. He saved up to $3,000 or $4,000 and gave it to the man. That was it.
That's it.
No agents, no anything. So that all of those things contribute, I believe, to people don't think I know what I'm talking about when I say it, but I lived through this.
But now I hear people saying that all the time, Mr. Scott, the economy, the economy, the economy. But I look at Exxon, Mobil, all these different companies, Kroger's, U.S. Foods. All of these people are making record profits.
Yeah.
Record profits. So, their economy is doing fine. According to the status quo. I mean, come on. You give the CEO that comes to work with a suit and tie on every morning, and goes out with the 3 martini lunch, and the meetings on the golf course, and you pay him 21, $22 million a year.
Yeah.
But when I ask you for, let's say, $17 an hour as a fair wage, you look like you got a mouthful of lemons. I mean, what are we doing here?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's, they talk about economy. I mean, that's when they have something you need, like gas. Okay, you can't go nowhere. You don't have no gas in your car. Well, then they just play with that as much as they feel like, because there's nothing you can do. You can't make your own gas. You can't, you can't, I mean, they used to siphon. I mean, I think I tried it a couple of times. I'm gonna choke myself trying to siphon some gas out of the car. But as long as they have you that way, and it's, my grandfather used to have a guitar, and he couldn't play it. It wasn't never in tune. But I mean, he could actually play it and sing and do. They would sit there and do stuff. And I looked at God, all the string, and I began to learn about music. I said, all the strings ain't there. This thing is in tune, but he's playing the thing and it's making some music. They could. So I asked him one day. I said, "Well, why do all the old blues guys only play acoustic guitar? They don't play no electric." We didn't have no electricity down there. We had an outhouse. We didn't have no running water. We had a well. And it just made me think, the stuff they had to do all on their own I mean, a well? I wouldn't have the first way. How in the world am I going to find some well under the ground and be able to drink it?
Oh man, Mr. Scott, I mean, hey, I came from the north. I lived in North. I went down. I got down to Fort Benning, Georgia. And people with nice houses got outhouses.
Yeah.
Still ain't got no running water.
Yeah. And that's something. Yeah.
I mean, so no, I mean, I can completely relate, and like you said, like when you look at how we did everything with nothing, and now everybody now people have everything and don't know how to do nothing with it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it is really something. Yeah, but one of the biggest things, with sports for me is, I was sitting watching a game. My kids were little, and they just were both athletes. They just all played everything. I said, we're watching a game. I said, you know what? There was a time when they didn't let the black players play in the game. It was only the white, and they were like, who would want to watch that? They were just incredulous. What? Who would want to watch that? Nobody would want to watch it.
I'm trying to think. It was LSU or somebody had all defensive team, and they were named the black something or other. But everybody on the team at that particular time for LSU was white. That was back during the time when Bear Bryant said that he would never have a black football player on his team.
Yeah.
But like he said, who would pay to watch that? Well, we did because we didn't have nothing else to watch.
Nothing else. You remember when they used to have, James, them 4 bowl games, and all the white guys, running back with John David Crow and all they was the running backs. And,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, but hey, You know,
Yeah.
like I said, though, it seems we've come a long way, but we haven't taken a step. But that's the pessimist in me. Mr. Scott, I'm gonna let you get up out of here. I'm glad that you were able to stop by and talk with me for a little while here. But how do you see this thing playing out? Uh, the Harris ticket against the 45 ticket. What do you think? I've heard a lot of things. Mostly what I hear is, well, we don't want to be involved in any more wars. I keep hearing that from a lot of people. But what good does it if you have no wars on foreign soil, but you have no rights on American soil?
Yeah.
So, if you look at the Project 2025, I know people are saying that this is a wish list by the Heritage Foundation. But if you take the time to print out 900 pages, evidently it's a blueprint. It's not just a wish list. So I'm going to give you the final word here, Mr. Scott, on how you think this election is going to play out, and more importantly, what impact is it going to have on your city?
Well, I think this coming election is really a litmus test for where we go from here, because my observation is that the Democratic Party has just been skating all this time with the black community. I mean, really hasn't done anything. And they've just kind of had us in lockstep to just vote Democratic and not even think. But now people are looking at the other side, not because they may be better, but because, maybe we do need a change. Maybe we need something different. And we're only given chocolate and vanilla. That's it. You're not getting anything else. There's only one or the other. And so I think this is a litmus test, because the Democrats have to really come out and show something. And I mean, neither candidate has really said anything of any real substance. I mean, Kamala comes out today about, well, I'm going to do something about the economy. I'm going to do so. Well, what? What? I mean, we're so far gone with this thing, housing prices, and and then they're doing these little subtle things, like they're changing, how you buy houses now. They're changing some kind of laws coming up now. You don't have to pay all these fees, but you just don't pay it to this person. They're making you pay it to the other person now. It's not that you're not going to have to pay the fees. You're still
No,
going to have to pay them, but you got to pay the other person. So
yeah,
how this shakes out, I think Trump is still.
you're not robbing Peter to pay Paul anymore. You're robbing Peter to pay Julio and Wai Jing and Abdul Muhammad.
Yeah, and I think Trump is still dangerous. As ridiculous as he is, ridiculous as he sounds, as incompetent as he is, as much as I can't stand him, I detest that man. And I think he's still dangerous. I mean, I think there are people that are just, for whatever reason, and then in his old rallies, yeah, you can always find a black guy to stand behind him and just jump up and down. He just probably keeps that guy on standby.
Well, he had the two women there for a while. I don't know. I haven't heard from him lately, but
No, I haven't heard from him either.
yeah.
So no, it's still to be determined. We got the. Are you going to Chicago for the big convention? Are you gonna?
if I go to Chicago, it'll be to see Caleb Williams play.
My father-in-law and my mother-in-law, they went to Chicago in '68 for the convention, and he said, "Man, we had to run back to Minneapolis." He said that they was running around with rifles and guns, and he said we got out of there as quick as you could.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, so
But
we've been here before. So we've been here. So I don't know who are you voting for? Can you say who you're voting for now? Or you're not gonna.
I can definitely say that I'm voting Democratic. I just there's something I represent this, and I just cannot, with a good conscience, vote for a man that has called my brothers and sisters suckers and losers.
Yeah,
That has found his way to not fulfill his military duty because of bone spurs. Uh, uh, and Mr. Scott, I mean, I know a lot of people that have been grazed by bullets, and I mean, there's usually a little burn pattern there or something. I mean, how do you get your ear almost shot off, but there's no scar? But I mean, this is just me. I'm just, I'm just saying, I mean, I've never shot a gun before, especially in an AR, 15. So I mean, hey, anyway,
yeah.
So I think there's I'm kind of putting this like the grassy knoll. Oswald shoots the shot, and then Jack Ruby shoots him, and then they kill Jack Ruby. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. No
it's,
trials, no trial. I mean, yeah.
so I mean, hey, and I'm not one that really believes in conspiracy theories, but I mean, Mr. Scott, I mean, I've been told that a bullet is hot. Okay, okay. Well, anyway, so I'll be definitely voting Democratic. Um, some of the alternatives that we have here in California, Mr. Larry Elder would not be getting my vote. Um, some of it is going to be very interesting to me, how this turns out because, as people know, I was not enamored with Kamala as the vice president. I was always afraid that Joe was going to die and leave her in the presidency. So I'm glad to see that she's at least getting out in front of people and she has a chance to at least show people who she is for real, rather than us taking for granted. Because I was really, when she was the prosecutor out here in L.A. County, I was one of the staunch advocates of getting her ass out of there. So it's quite a turnaround for me.
Well,
But
well.
I have to vote my conscience. That's all I can say.
What is Walls then? Is Walls a benefit to her? You think Walls is open the
I,
ticket? Yeah, what's
I was much more in favor, like you were, of the governor of Pennsylvania, but I understand why. That would have also been caused some diversion in the party. I think Walls is a safe choice, mainly because people don't know a whole lot about him, and the fact that there's not a lot of dirt to be dug up on him like there is a lot of other candidates. I'm even though I'm not, I was kind of dependent upon this show for, so a lot of the people of Minneapolis could tell me how they felt about him and what was going on. But I think when you consider, when you compare Walls to J.D. Vance, I
yeah.
don't think there's a comparison there.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you compare uh, the policies of the Republican Party as opposed to those of the Democratic Party, when you could talk about immigration and things like that, then I mean, these are all problems. But you also have to remember that just because you have a president, you still have a House and a Senate that you have to deal with. So the problem is not always with the head. Sometimes it's with the body. So sometimes you have to destroy muscle, or you have to cut the fat in order to bring the muscle out. So I think this is, like you said, this is going to be a very interesting time.
Yeah.
Uh, I I think the worst thing that could happen for us is a second Trump term, because I think just like they packed the Supreme Court, we might lose term limits on the presidency.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things to be wary of, and like I said, uh, when I hear people talking about the economy, but I never hear them talking about the huge profits. So
Yeah.
that kind of bothers me. But yeah, I'm I have no qualms, no problems telling people who I'm voting for, and I stand behind it. And you
Yeah.
know, hopefully, you know, we'll win. I think a win for the Democratic Party is uh, the safest way for America to go, because I think we always talk about the liberals, but I think the radical right is really getting out of hand. So yeah, as I said, if have you had enough observations in order for you to narrow it down to who you might want to vote for? I'm not going to ask you who, but do you think that you've had enough observation in order for you to make the choice, or are you still on the fence here?
No, no, I'm not on the fence. There's no way I can, go, in the way of another Trump. I just think that that's just disastrous, and he's really said nothing to really enhance, to me, any of his prospects. And nothing changes. Total incompetence. And I no, it's just can't you can't even fathom that. I mean, I have disdain for him. I really do. I mean, a lot of the things he said, and he tries to slide these things, and then when he adds his vice president candidate with him, who is just, oh my God, this it's despicable. But it's just amazing that there are people that think that's great, that defend this foolishness. So I'll be watching. I'll be watching, but no, I'm going to I'm going to have to go Democratic. I mean that's what I ended up doing. So
Yeah,
offered nothing. Offered nothing. Nothing.
we did have quite a few comments in the uh, chat room tonight. We had Mr. Heilberg, who's said he would. I can definitely see that he's a Trump supporter, and we don't mind having Trump supporters. It's fine.
No,
He
no,
said,
that's great. Yeah, I wish they would just tell us why he's so great. What is he going to do? I wish they would say what the benefits are of a Trump. I've never seen anything to say what he's going to do for the country or anybody. Nothing.
yeah, I do have to look. I do have to tell Mr. Heidelberg that he says Tim Walz deserted his military unit, and J.D. Vance was a Marine. J.D. Vance was a Marine for a quick 4 years. Okay, a quick 4 years. Didn't do anything to distinguish himself. He was deployed. He did not volunteer. He wasn't in a volunteer unit, and he never saw a day's worth of combat. You can talk all you want about J.D. Vance and Mr. Walz, but Mr. Walz completed 24 years of service. He finished as a command sergeant major. You might want to look that up. And after you 24 years, you're not obligated to go into a theater of combat. How many 60-year-olds do you know want to go into combat?
Yeah.
The man had, as far as Mr. Heidelberg is concerned, I'm glad to see that you came on the program. The only thing that I'm kind of disappointed about is that you stayed in the chat room. I gave you a link to come on. You could have came in at any time and spewed all of this rhetoric that you put in our chat room, and we could have discussed this.
Sure, I would have welcomed it. I would welcome, to hear what what the redeeming qualities, if any, are. I've never heard what one is, but I'd love to hear someone that can bring that up. Love it.
Yeah. Well, like I said, Mr. Heidelberg, just get in touch with me. My email is at JEKing3. As a matter of fact, I'll write it down. I'll put it in the comments for you. And all you have to do is contact me, and we'll make sure that you have equal time on the show. So, Mr. Scott, I want to thank you for joining me. I appreciate your time. Look forward to talking to you again about something a little more pleasant this Wednesday, when we can talk a little sports.
Yeah.
So do you want to give us any final thoughts before you get out of here?
No. It's always good to talk about these things, and talking to people from different parts of the country. And now the focus has been on Minnesota for the last, at least since the George Floyd. And what's going on here seems to be of interest to the country now. And I think I can bring a perspective from someone who lives here in the area, has been here my whole life. And that's kind of my point of view. I'm really trying to get to what seems to be the right thing to do. I'm not just trying to be a follower. I'm trying to really take in things. I'm really trying to look at, and this show allows this to happen. So no, that's my final. And if there's any late breaking news or anything that comes up, you can count on me to tell you what's going on in this neck of the woods.
Okay. All right. And I will see you Wednesday on the show. So you have a great night, Mr. Scott, and appreciate talking to you.
Yeah. We'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you, Dan, for dropping in and listening. And thank you, Bob, for your comments. We appreciate you both. And as I said, anytime you would like to make a guest appearance here on any of our shows, just contact me, JEKingIII at gmail.com. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you for joining me, Mr. Scott, and I'll see you all next week. Have a good one.